Therapy, a boutique in-home private pediatric speech, language, and dyslexia therapy practice serving families living in the mainline area from Ardmore to Malvern, PA. They're dedicated to helping children's speech and communication skills develop and grow as they are essential to their academic and social success. Owls Therapy offers comprehensive evaluations and devises individual therapy plans that best match your child's personal needs. They also offer all therapy in-home, provide parent and teacher training, offer classroom observations, and help with navigating school-based services. Learn more at owlstherapy.com. Hello and welcome back to Parenting Stuff I Wish I Knew Sooner. I Want You to Know Now. I'm your host, Erica Desper, founder of the Center for Confident Parenting, and a mom who seemed to learn everything I needed to know just the hardest way possible. Today, I am joined by Jessica Haggerty, a licensed behavior specialist and therapist at Pediatric Psychology Center of Chester County. She has over 25 years of experience working with children of all ages and abilities. She is also mom to 5 neurodivergent kiddos, 5 with ADHD and 2 also with autism. So she can certainly share some successful behavior strategies that she has learned along the way. Jessica, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Erica, for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm very excited. I'm like, that sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah.
We're going to get into it.
It's easy.
Right? It's just a breeze. 5 sounds like a lot to me, period.
Yeah,
like full stop. I can barely handle my 1. That 5 with extra things going on. Wow.
Yeah.
So you're like, you must be a saint. Tell us a little bit about you, a little more about your family, and what brought you to working with this population in this area.
Yeah. So first of all, too, I want to address the 5 because, so basically my husband and I did want to have like a larger family. That was our goal. So we had our 3 and we were like, okay,
you got it.
Yeah. So we were like, okay, yeah, we do. We like kids. So we had our 3 and then we were like, one more. And then of course I was pregnant with twins. So we went from 3 to the 5 and that really, that's a big difference.
The universe was like, oh yeah, I gotcha.
Oh yeah, that makes, yes, huge difference there. So, but yeah, so a little bit about myself too. I am a therapist and a licensed behavior specialist at Pediatric Psychology Center of Chester County. And I'm also a PA certified teacher as well. That's why I got my undergraduate in. I went for elementary and both early childhood education. So I have both those certificates. And I'm also actually in the process now of getting certified as an autism specialist. So like, that's my next goal. So, but yeah, and at the center, I usually specialize, with 0 to 10-year-old. That's basically what I do. I can do older. I've done older, but I love the little guys, really. And I mean,
not everyone does, so that's great.
I know. I'm like, if I get a 2-year-old, I'm like, yeah, my 2-year-old. So I love it. But yeah, so I work with them. A lot of times I see the neurodivergent kiddos. Sometimes they come in and we don't know at that time, though, that they haven't been diagnosed.
Right.
But for the most part, if I do see something going on there, then that would be another step too, would be letting Dr. Aaron know or whatever, or talking to parents about that possibly being an evaluation or whatever. So, and that's up to the parents. Yeah. So, but for the most part, I do work with them. So usually it's kids I get in there that autism is one thing, ADHD, OCD, learning disabilities. So a lot of kids with like IEPs and 504s, a lot of times, that will be the case there as well, depending on how young they are too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I also too want to mention that I also work in preschools too now. So at the center, I will also have parents who need help in preschools. So I will go in there as well. And then I'll support the kids and I'll support the teachers there.
And your kids range right now from?
Yeah.
Where to where?
My own children range from 14 to 21.
All right.
And yes, like you said, they all have ADHD. So they're all neurodivergent, 5 with ADHD, and then 2 of those have autism as well. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, but
so whatever
we have
whatever
fun.
strategies you've learned, you get to use a lot.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And and that's what I was going to say too, just to kind of get into like how I started that, how I got into this was really because I was a teacher, I taught for a little bit, and I just had decided too that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. And I wanted to homeschool my kids. So that
because
was like,
you
I wanted
didn't
to
have
do
enough
that.
on your plate. You were like,
Exactly.
what else can I put on here?
Right, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So I started there. Like that was kind of, but then, as I ended up seeing the children with more and more needs, realizing, wait, there's more going on here. I did my own research, and I had worked a little bit with kids with ADHD and autism teaching, not a whole lot. That was back in the long time ago.
Right.
So
no one had it back then, right?
Not gonna, yeah, right. No.
This is
And
a
I
new
didn't
thing.
know as much. Yeah, right. No, and I didn't know as much about it either. So then I did a lot of research then with that. So, and I just came up with strategies and things like that for my kids through my own research. And then from there, I started actually going back to work part-time and working with autistic kiddos when I did that. And I loved it so much that then I decided to add even more to my plate and go back and then get my master's degree in special education. And yeah.
You're making us all look bad, Jessica.
Oh, I told you I'm
like
old, so I've had lots of years to do.
Yes, true. And your littles aren't so little anymore, so I'm gonna chalk it up to that.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and I think that's how most of us, experts kind of come into our passion or whatever it is. It's like, hey, we struggle with this, our kids struggle with it. I'm going to learn all I can about it, and then, by the way, I want to share that with other people. So we're definitely aligned there. We're talking a lot about neurodivergence, which is a very common phrase that we throw around, but just for anyone who's listening, it can mean different things to different people. It might mean nothing to someone who's listening. So what does that mean when we say that? Can you give us like a brief overview of neurodivergence?
Yeah. So sometimes people think neurodivergence. Like I think a lot of times they think maybe autism, and I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the most part.
That's what I used to think.
Yeah.
There's a nicer way to say that.
Yes, right. But there's more to that neurodivergent under that umbrella. Like there's a lot under there. So that would be like autism, of course, and then ADHD, learning disabilities, OCD, even bipolar disorder. There's more. So basically what it is your brain is different. You think differently. Yep. You learn differently. That cognitive process, it's different. And a lot of what we are finding is that those brains that are different, need that extra support and extra help in there. So that is pretty much what that is. They, and the other side of it is that neurotypical brain. That's what we would call that other side of it. So, which would be the typical brain, but that's what they're comparing it to. And then the neurodivergent brain has developed differently.
It isn't a right, wrong, better, worse.
Exactly. There's just differences, and that is what it is. And that's why they use that neurodivergence term now, because instead of saying like, we're going to fix that or whatever, that's wrong, that's the incorrect brain. It's not. It's just a different way of thinking, learning, behavior, all of that.
Which I think that's really helpful for reducing stigma, hopefully eliminating it and just accessing better support.
Yep.
So as I was preparing to chat with you and reading about your strategies, I read that you use, evidence-based practices and procedures. And this is another term that gets thrown around a lot where, is this evidence-based? What does that mean for someone who's never heard of it before?
So really evidence-based is, it's been done, it's been practiced, it's been used, it's been researched. I want to point out too that it also has been approved. It should be approved by the clients as well. So meaning like it works for them. It's not
an interesting distinction.
And, I will honestly say that probably at times maybe there are things that are not approved by the client that are evidence-based. But for me, in my opinion, that's what you should be using, those evidence-based procedures that are socially valid, that the client is, okay using. So one of my biggest thing is when I worked with autistic kiddos, I made sure that they were okay with that. So it's not what the parents necessarily want all the time. It's what is best for them as well. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there.
No, that's good. And I think it really also
important.
means modern evidence, right? Like this is our understanding of what this means and what these neurodivergent brains need is evolving. So to me, evidence-based would also mean like, and you're up to date with the current research and findings.
Exactly. And I think that that's super important to add all that in there. And, and just evidence-based too is just, is it effective? Is it valid? Is it all of those things? So really, those are all important things. We want them to work. We want it to be right for the client, to be used correctly and also to be approved by them as far as, that. So
for example, seclusion, which we've moved away from in schools, and we don't put people in institutions just because their brain is different. That would be an example of an older, not evidence-based practice that probably out of lack of knowledge, lack of other options. But now we're saying, hey, no, we need to include, we need to support. That's more what we're talking about.
Support, yes.
Because we have research to show that works.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff used back in the day that should not be used.
I hate hearing about it and realizing that it wasn't actually that long ago.
Yes.
Like potentially our kids could have been institutionalized.
Yep.
Even though mine presents just so typically, but it may have been the label that, has created that.
Yes,
but
you are
that's
correct.
a soapbox for another day.
I know. That's another.
We're going to call this episode Tangents Aplenty.
That's right.
To go on another slight tangent. So we're talking about evidence-based practices. We're hearing a lot about providers being neuro-affirming.
Yes.
Parents will say in the Facebook groups, I'm looking for a neuro-affirming, therapist to work with my child or coach. Or use neuro-affirming language. What does that mean?
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because I have had parents who have actually not at PPCC, not at the Pediatric Psychology Center, but in another job that I've had say, I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about that. So when I explained it to them, then that did put their mind at ease of like what I'm doing. And I also have had just recently another client saying, basically, thank you, because you are neuro affirming. I appreciate all of that. So what it is really, there's definitely times and situations where we thought again that neurodivergent brain was wrong or incorrect and needed to be changed, and that is not correct. So what we are doing when we're neuroaffirming is that we are helping, supporting, not changing, not making them fit in to a neurotypical world necessarily. That can be very difficult for our neurodivergent kids and adults as well. We're not trying to change them in that way to make them neurotypical. That is not my goal at all, and not a neuroaffirming goal. What we're doing is we are supporting, we are helping them to navigate the neurotypical world, which is
Right.
really difficult, very difficult. And they're doing it in a way that works for them. So I'm helping to give them that support so that they can navigate the world really in a way that works for them. So just if I could just use like even an example, if that's okay.
That would be great.
My
I was just
own,
going to throw, but you go.
okay, no, my own daughter, who is autistic, she is very good at, because I have taught her to advocate for herself and realize this is what I need. This is what's going on with me. She will be very open about herself and being autistic as well. And it's really interesting. And that's up to her. She does
Right.
this. And she'll start a conversation, or she'll get in a group with somebody or start a conversation. And then, because conversations can be difficult, that's social, and she'll kind of stop and it gets awkward and she'll say, okay, I don't know what to say now here. This is not like, I have no idea what else to say at this point. So she like kind of expresses that and,
Right.
you know, in a way that kind of eases that conversation.
Right.
And she'll even say, I'm autistic. Like, I don't know what so, but
Right.
you know, and I
But it
feel
makes
like
it more
that's
comfortable.
good.
Like it
Right.
disarms everyone. Like, here's the
Mhm.
situation. Let's just roll with
Yep.
it.
And, you know, and that along with that too is just even that stimming piece. She needs to regulate her body. She needs to stim.
That's what I was gonna bring up. So like
Mhm.
flapping, for example,
Yep.
whereas the old thinking was, let's find a way to make you stop doing that.
No.
Which,
No. Yeah.
and again, it's probably up to each person. Maybe there are some people who do that and feel embarrassed by it and would like to not feel the need to do that. And
Yep.
maybe that's their goal. But if that isn't their goal and they're like, look, this keeps me
Yes.
calm, and when I can't do it, I have an outburst, then
Exactly.
the neuro-affirming approach would be, okay, so we're gonna, like, you're gonna do that. We're gonna work with that.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
maybe we're just educating other people about
Yep.
what purpose it serves for you, and like, hey, don't worry about it.
Absolutely. And
That makes a lot of
yeah,
sense.
and that is definitely that's that goal. And she will, you know, and just an example of that too, she has expressed she's aware of people possibly noticing if she tries to stim in class, you know, and so then we come up with other things to do that might be a little less
Like a redirect.
noticeable, you know, but what works for her too, because
Right.
then often that's not great. It doesn't work as well as a regular stim.
Right.
So then that's where I'm saying to the teacher, she needs a sensory break. She needs time to go stim and take that time so that she can regulate her body and come back to the classroom. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Hopefully that clears some things up for people.
Yeah.
It's very hard to stay on top of all the language and the concepts, and it is always
definitely
changing. So as both a behavior specialist / therapist / mom to 5 neurodivergent kiddos, what are you seeing? Like, if you had to give a list of the top daily challenges in your experience, what is your short list for that?
Yeah, that was hard. So I had like kind of narrow, you know, trying to narrow that down. So I definitely see, and if I'm saying even among my own children and at this, you know, center, anywhere that I'm working, the biggest things that I'm seeing is those big emotions.
Yes.
The big emotions that are like, and a lot of it's anxiety and anger. A lot of that's what's coming out. Again, my own kids, I'm seeing anxiety, the anger piece, the dysregulation, you know, that sensory need. And they all kind of go together though, too, those, you know, and then with that too, I'm seeing communication being a need as well. You know, just being able to communicate, again, advocating for themselves, being able to communicate those needs too. So, and like I said, that sensory base too, and regulating themselves. Those are all needs for sure.
So when we're seeing the big explosion, or whatever word we want to use, meltdown, and there's a lot of words, big feelings, big reactions, which often catch parents off guard. Even if you have a kid that does this often, you don't always know when it's coming. I know that mine can be like 0 to 60, like fine one moment, freaking out the
Yep.
next moment, fine right after that. And I'm like, what?
Yes. No, I know. Yep.
Definitely challenging. What's happening in those moments? What makes those big feelings such a challenge for a
Yeah.
neurodivergent kid? And then like what do we do to help them navigate that?
Yeah. Oh no, I know. So it is hard. So, I mean, basically what is happening is, they are, they think differently. Their body has difficulty regulating itself. They have a lot of sensory things going on. So there is lights, people, noises, so much going on, trying to focus, trying to pay attention, everything is coming at them from all different angles. So with all of that even added, then mom says, no, you can't have the candy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're already overly stimulated, like too much going on. Then we go, and when you say 0 to 60, that is so common. I saw it with my own kids. I see it with the kids I work with, immediate, like that emotion.
Like a
And
switch.
it's very hard. And what we talk about even is like, your brain, little kids even, I talk to them about this, and I use it in like a cute little form with these little cartoon characters, but basically your brain is going into danger mode when it shouldn't be. You should be, your brain should be calming and staying calm and not going into that fight, flight, freeze mode, but it is because that's how their brain works. And they need to learn those skills to calm their bodies down. So that would be
Sort
the
of like
next
a
thing.
smoke detector that can't tell whether you're cooking dinner or your house is on
Yes.
fire.
Yes, exactly. And what I do a lot of times, one of the very first things I do with the kids I work with and with the parents is I have proactive strategies put in place for like sensory based needs to help with that regulation and regulating their bodies and their emotions. So that looks like kinetic sand, all sensory types of things, slime, Play-Doh, anything to do this, fidgets, but then not just that, but our whole body. So like swimming, sport, anything that we can get that sensory piece there, and help with that calming of our bodies. But with that, then as they're learning those skills, and I teach them in the office too, to try to recognize those big emotions that are coming, which is really hard to do. So part of that is self-awareness, and we work on that too. And realizing that these emotions are coming and saying, okay, I need a break. I need to calm my body down. I need to, and that's very difficult to do. That does take time. Some kids are better than others at that. That's okay.
And let me ask you this, not to interrupt you. Are you suggesting that in the heat of the moment, our child has reached 60, we're going like, hey, it seems like, or is this something, I'm sure you're going to say, we have to work on this in advance of, in between, after the fact, because when they're in that place, they're not even able to access.
No.
Right. So we're kind of not waiting for it to happen, but we're anticipating it will happen again and saying like, let's make a plan for that.
Yes.
So we're just referencing the plan.
Yes, so that's exactly correct. So basically, I try to do those proactive strategies where let's kind of keep our body at a calmness, first of all. Let's try to help with that. So for example, like when our kids come home from school, they're usually a lot of times neurodivergent kids are very dysregulated because of all that stuff.
Collapse. I was so excited when I learned that there was like a term for that.
That's very, very common. So that a lot of times is what will happen. So I've suggested to parents, get out the sand, get out all the stuff, put it there on the table or whatever they can do, and that they can help calm their bodies down. Listen. I've also told parents, listen to them too. Let them tell you what helps. So with that, helping to calm them is good, but still we go to that 0 to 60. That doesn't always answer that. But so what we're doing is we are practicing those strategies. So we're practicing them in the office. We're practicing it at home. I often tell parents to like even set up situations where, hey, let's do this together. And model it maybe, or let's have fun and let's see if I were to say, no, you can't have that. What is something that you can do? So if you're upset and you really are paying attention, you feel your body is getting upset. What can you do then in that moment? So that's one thing. We practice it. We talk about it. With that whole 0 to 60, it is difficult. So parents' reaction is one thing I also work on there too, because I do see kids getting absolutely better with that when we practice the sensory strategies, when we practice the other strategies of calming down. They get better, but they're not always going to be 100% awesome at it. They're working on it. So parents need to also have specific like reactions to that, that anger and that meltdown or whatever's going on there. And really the reactions are, not to react a whole lot, really, because you'll get them more wound up. So
they'll just feed into the situation.
Yep,
what
definitely.
About we've done a lot of practicing. I'll just level with you. And then my son hits a, meltdown spot and I say like, okay, remember when you're feeling like this, we have things that can help. And of course, because he's in that moment, none of those things work.
Yep.
They don't work.
100%.
I don't remember what they are. Don't make any suggestions. What's my move as a parent in that moment? Am I just sitting quietly waiting for him to come down? Am I handing him his basket of sensory things?
It is very difficult. It is, because that is probably one of the biggest issues probably that we talk about, because they will say they're not using them. They're not using them in that moment. And yeah, I get it. I mean, it's hard to in that moment. Honestly, a lot of times with the kids I've worked with in that moment, it's kind of like they have to have that moment, I think, for a little bit. And then what
as
parents
often to come down,
what parents often say to me is it's getting less and less, or it's not as long. And really it is time, again, I have still told parents, you don't need to like give instruction, talk to them during that time, don't do, none of that. We're not doing any of that. Let them have that moment. But maybe you're going to say, maybe there is something you can add, your child. If there is something, you'd be like, oh wait, Miss Jess said that, do you want to use the kinetic sand? I know we're having that moment, or sometimes what I'll do too is I'll be like, you know what, that's fine. But when you're ready, I have some kinetic sand over here. I know you like to use that. Then you can go ahead and use that. And even just that little maybe prompt in there. Like I said, I know they're having a hard time, but even that sometimes can possibly bring that down, and then kind of like, okay, I'll use that. Like I said, the more we practice it, the better it gets. But oftentimes they're going to have that moment. My own children do. My daughter does. We work on it then even afterwards, we talk about it. So I tell parents that too. Sometimes we have kids though who are like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I want to do it. But I often say to parents, nighttime, right at bedtime. A lot of times
they're because they're stalling, right? So they're willing to have all the conversations at nighttime.
So we talk about it and we go over it. If you can do that, that would be awesome. Some kids are more willing to than others.
And with mine, it's walking. We can take a walk and talk about anything because we're not looking at each other. Right. There's no pressure or low pressure.
The other thing I also do with that too, and if it works, sometimes doesn't, is like visuals too. Like, so if they're having that big emotion during that time, having something there that's a reminder of the things that they can help themselves with, taking a break, calming themselves down.
Because our tendency is to spew words at them, but they're not even processing. That part of their brain is offline.
Yep.
Right?
So there's visuals.
Highly verbal kids.
Exactly. And I might gesture or point to it and be like, when you're ready, oh, you could do this, or something, or just point to it just as a reminder.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So that's a big top challenge and some things we can use. I think it's really helpful for parents to know or be reminded, learning takes repetition for any brain,
Mhm.
but for the
Right.
neurodivergent brain,
Yeah.
I can only speak for my
It's
son.
hard.
He requires infinitely more repetition than I
Yeah.
wished we had to spend on every little thing. So
Yep.
just, I would say, don't give up on these things too
That's
quickly,
correct. So,
and just
yes,
keep coming back
that's
to
correct.
him.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
the other top challenge you mentioned was the social piece. So why is that such a challenge? And then
Yeah.
what is there a strategy or two we can have for that?
So social, yeah, definitely social communication, that kind of thing. So I often find that even those behaviors that are occurring are probably, or sometimes because we're not able to communicate things. So we're struggling with that communication piece, which is very normal for our neurodivergent kids. Um, so I will help them with, giving them those words or all of that. So with these social skills too, which is part of that communication as well, we do in the office, I will work on those. So, and then I will encourage parents as well to continue working on those in that moment where I might be referring to, that communication piece where we're helping them. Sometimes we have to give them the words to say
Oh, yeah.
too. That I've done as well. Just an example would be a little kiddo, maybe in a daycare where someone took their toy or they want a toy, whatever that might be, where I'm trying to catch it in that moment where I give them the words, oh, share, or can I have it, or whatever, like
Mhm.
just, and then they'll repeat that word
So
just
more
to,
the
you know,
modeling.
so yeah. And sometimes that's what is definitely needed is helping with those words.
And since there's
Then
so much comorbidity with anxiety, the practice in
yes.
advance of the actual social
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I always tell parents
situation brings that
practicing,
down. Yeah.
and that goes along with it too. Like even practicing. So some of the things we work on are even pro-social behaviors of being kind, using teamwork, like
Yeah.
working together. Like we will go through those as well. Understanding empathy. Um, you know, practice. I tell parents all the time, like give situations. What would you do in this situation if your friend fell down and hurt himself? Like, what would you say? What would you do? Um, I say have fun with it too.
Right.
Make up little scenarios and act it out.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And mine,
Yeah.
who's a little older, I'll say like, "Hey, at the restaurant, you're gonna tell the server what you want to
Yes.
have because that's painful for him. It involves
Yep.
memory, eye contact, like all the stuff.
Yep.
So instead of springing it for him in the
Yes.
moment, I'll say like, "So what's your plan?" So that doesn't feel so
Yes.
painful, and he'll come up
Perfect.
with
Yep.
like, I'll put it in my phone, and then when he asks me what I
Perfect.
want, I'll look at my phone, and that way I'll remember, and I don't have to make eye contact. Um,
Yep.
that's
That's perfect.
an example of practicing
Yeah.
in advance. I think it's also an example of hopefully of the neuroaffirming too. I could say you have to look the person in the eye and speak clearly, like
Yeah.
that's
Right.
what's standard, right?
Yeah.
But instead I'm like, look, our goal is that you order for yourself, and however
Yep.
you can make that happen, write it down. I don't care.
Exactly.
I just don't want to do it for you. So
Exactly.
we're
And
on the right track there.
100%. That's very good. And that giving that help beforehand is awesome. And I always say to parents too, listen to your kids too. What will work for
Right.
them too?
Yeah.
Ask them that. I've asked my kids that all the time. Okay, but so, like you're saying, you do have to order, but what is a good way for you to do that? What would work for you?
Perfect.
So yeah, and then practicing that or giving the expectations of what will happen ahead of time too. That
Yes.
helps too.
Because again, the not knowing, so much
Yikes.
anxiety. So are these strategies we're talking about? I mean, it sounds like they could be helpful for all humans, no matter
Yeah.
how their brains are wired.
Yeah.
But to clarify, if your
Yeah.
brain is wired differently, which means you learn differently and you
Yeah.
process differently, parents are going to have to be more specific with their strategies to those kids than maybe the neurotypical kids. Is that what we're
Right.
saying? So they do need,
Yeah.
not necessarily, I guess, would we say they need different strategies or they need more specific implementation of strategies?
Yeah. So, I mean, anybody could use these strategies, right? And they could always use, anybody can. But what I find is that definitely with our neurotypical kiddos, those strategies are very important. Our typical brains seem to, it's like neurotypical people seem to know this stuff
They just,
somehow. And then our neurodivergent kiddos, me too,
it
have
needs to be
to
more
learn
explicit,
it.
I
And
think is
there's
like the right.
more
Yeah.
strategies, things like that, that we, and like you said too, just that repetition probably, but those strategies that we're putting in place. Like a lot of times I say visuals are good, timers, giving expectations ahead of time. Again, you can use these with neurotypical kiddos and
Sure.
people
We
too.
always we'll look a place up that we're going to. There's, the internet's
Exactly.
great for that. Read the description, look
Right.
at the pictures.
Yeah. But our,
Yeah, there's much information in
yeah,
that.
and, right, exactly. And our neurodivergent kiddos, this isn't just a skill that they're learning now and then never use again. I mean, these are things too, like even lists and calendars, or preparing themselves like for the day, whatever that might be that they need, they use into adulthood as
Yeah,
well. So
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. That was all super helpful. There's so many more specific scenarios I want to ask you about, but we will table that for another conversation, because now I want to shift from your clinician, teacher, behavior specialist hat back to
yeah,
only your mom of 5 and 5 that are neurodivergent hat. And being neurodivergent yourself, which to me sounds like it could be very messy and fraught with challenge. I'm not in your
no,
home, so I can't say for sure.
no,
So
yeah,
what, like for you as a parent, and you also work outside the home, what are you finding most challenging about parenting right now, with your youngest being 14, your oldest being 22? What are
yeah,
you like, ugh, this is the bane of my existence right now, despite everything I know and have done?
yeah. Oh gosh, teenagers. Really, I mean, like,
Right.
right
Right.
now, um, I mean, it's always been hard, of course, but I remember when my husband and I, when we went out finally, when my kids were little, we got a time out, and we were at a restaurant, and the lady had teenagers, but we still had little kids, and she said to us, "Oh, you're so lucky that they're still little, because teenagers are harder." And I remember being like, what? Like
What
so
could be
mad
harder
about
than
that.
this?
I know. Because, so, but this is different. It's
Yeah,
not harder, whichever one.
it's a different
This
hard. Yeah.
is different.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. It's more, I think, compared to then, I was like physically exhausted.
Yes.
And now it's like more of like an emotional kind of
Yeah.
worry, something. I'm trying to figure out how to explain that.
Emotional,
Like a difference there, that
because
like
they're
worry.
experiencing so much emotion, right? And sometimes
Yes.
it's big, and
Yes.
oh,
Yep.
it's so hard for me, because my son's turning 14 as well, to determine, and maybe I don't need to know, maybe I drive myself crazy over this for no reason, but I'm always trying to figure out, like, is what's happening right now the thing that I don't enjoy, don't know how to handle? Is that just age related, and all parents of
Yep.
almost 14-year-old kids are going
Have this.
through it, and it's like a phase, right? And it's hormones,
Right.
or is this like related to his challenges and I just don't have the right strategies? I'm not saying the right words.
Yeah.
It's like this constant thing that I get stuck in my head about, and
Mm-hmm.
there probably isn't an exact answer.
Yeah.
That's what I find so challenging right now.
Right.
Like, I'd love to be like, well, he's just being a teenager,
Yep.
but then I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'm messing this up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like that's part of it though. Like that's part of what's hard, because did I do this right? Am I using the correct strategy, parenting strategy or
Right.
whatever.
And
But
like,
so I think that's
how
hard.
did I suddenly become so lame and ignorant? I don't know when that happened. So everything I
Yeah.
say and do
Right.
I'm annoying simply
Yep.
by existing and breathing. And I'm like,
Yep.
where did my sweet, like, when did
It's
that
different.
happen?
Yep.
But there's flip flop too. And then I'll get it
Yep.
back and be like, oh, phew.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
Yep.
so hard.
It's different. It's so different from when they were little. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm more rested, maybe.
There you go. We're not so much with the sleep deprivation. And when we hit it, it's probably our own like fault in choices, like staying up to read a book or what, binge a show
Yes,
or whatever.
exactly.
You're right. It's
Yep.
much more of the mental load and the emotional and all the
Yes.
resistance and all the like, and it's time to put your screen away because we don't have as much control. They're more independent.
Yes. Yep. That's
But that
correct.
presents a lot more challenges.
Yep, it
Well,
does. It's
I'm
different.
I'm sorry that's a struggle, but I'm glad it's not mine alone. I'll say
Yes, no,
that.
I really feel like that's probably
I, pro-
normal
I I'm doing this show for everyone else, but hey, I'm doing it for me
for
too. I
yourself
always
too. I
get
know.
something out of it. Yeah. So that's the
Yeah.
challenging part.
Yeah.
What I always like to turn it around and get back to the positive. What is bringing you
Yeah.
the most joy with your 5 of those ages?
Um, yeah. So I think when I think about that, what brings me the most joy with them is that seeing what they are becoming, um, seeing that what their personalities are like. And I must say that recently I've had a couple people say to me, "Oh, your daughter is so kind, so this, you're so, which is
Mhm.
so nice to hear." So that to me is awesome. And that really helps me, I think, just to feel like, okay, maybe I possibly did something right, possibly back in the day. But that and just the relationship I think that I'm building right now or continue to build with my teenagers as well. So they still do hang out with us, my husband
And
and I.
still want to.
They still do. Just the fact that they will, they still talk to us, that's awesome. So they come to us with things. So I like that. I think we have family time. So we just really, yes, we're all neurodivergent. Yes, it's crazy and chaotic, but yes, we laugh a lot too. So we have fun, and that's definitely
Which can cover a
that joy.
multitude of other things. Laughter is so
Ex-
powerful.
yep, yep.
Which brings me to another thought. How in the world, especially when they were, let's take that age set and just pull it back a little bit. I don't even know if they're still all home or whatever, but like how now or then, how did you make time for each of their individual
Yeah,
needs? They must want one-on-one time with you, and they each need probably different strategies. And
yeah.
how did you make that work? Or did you?
No, I did. Yeah, I was thinking to myself, they're going to watch this probably and be like, "What?" No, but really, we did. We tried our best. I mean, it's hard with 5 kids, so
Yeah.
we definitely did. Though we made sure that we put time aside for each kid. So like my husband and I would say, "This is your week," or something.
Okay.
Like then we would spend time with that child. This is when they were younger more.
Yeah, yeah.
And we would spend time specifically one-on-one with them. So
Okay.
and do things as families too. But now that they're older, we don't necessarily do as much of that one-on-one. They're very busy. They have their things. We still
And they
do.
probably
It's not
don't
like we
need it
don't
as
at
much.
all. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
For
we
one.
still, yeah, we still have that time though where we will. What I find what happens is they come to me. So if I'm in the kitchen, they talk to me, which is nice. Or if I'm in the bedroom and whatever, and they'll come and like lay on the bed and start talking to me. So it's kind of like more random,
Right.
but we
Then
do have
scheduled.
that. It's like when they need it
Yeah.
too, I think more.
But that's probably because you did the scheduled version and they know it's an option and they know they enjoy
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Right.
Yep. And
Okay.
we've always said we're open, come to us, talk to
Right.
us. So we
Well, and we
have that
know,
openness.
speaking of evidence-based, we know that it's really about the quality of one-on-one time when you're in this
Yep.
situation, not the quantity. So it sounds
Quantity.
like
Yeah.
your kid might get like, you get full me, but
Yeah.
then like, okay, now you got to wait a month till that happens again.
Yeah.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
But still, it still
At
worked
that
out the
time.
way.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then where are you in all of that? How did you possibly find ways and time to refill your own cup when you had 5 little people with needs,
Oh
extra
gosh.
needs?
Yeah. So
It's
when they were
probably easier to
little,
come by now.
yeah. Oh goodness. Okay. So when they were little, I don't know what I don't remember.
Maybe you didn't. I mean, the honest answer might be I didn't, but I survived, or I was so tired I forget.
Well, I feel like that maybe I was so tired I forget. But I mean, I feel like what filled my cup, honestly, for me was being with my kids a lot of time. I love being with my family and my kids. It's not like, I'm not saying it's perfect at all, because there definitely is a lot of stress and chaos. But when you have those good moments, and when things are going well and you're having fun, that does definitely fill my cup. And, you know, I think even doing those things for myself, like going outside and working even did. And then even going back to school because for me, I love that kind of thing,
Because it was something
learning.
that was for you. It wasn't
Exactly.
about them. Yeah.
100%. And even now that's the case. I think how do I help myself now? Well,
Yeah.
I learn, I research things, I learn, and I read too, all pretty much things that are about
Right.
neurodivergence and
Right.
all those
But
things,
that's the
because I
thing
love
about refilling
it.
your cup. Like there's this buzzword self-care. And at this point we're
Hmm.
all like, ugh, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't feel like getting my hair done or getting my nails done.
Yeah.
That is not self-care to me. That is like I'm
Yep.
tapping my foot. Like, how long is this gonna take and when can I get out of here so
Yep.
I can
Same.
go walk on a trail and listen to some birds or something, right?
Right.
But that's
Exactly.
the thing. We not only have to figure out how to make time for it, and it doesn't have to be a whole day spa thing. It could
Yep.
be I'm going to take 10 minutes to drink a drink while it's hot,
Yep.
or reheat it and then drink it while it's hot.
Yep. Yes. Nope.
But
Yep.
you also have to figure out what really refills you, because that's going to be different from some people love going and getting their nails done. It's a super special treat.
Yep.
And some of us
Exactly.
just need to sit in silence with nobody telling us anything or look at this or whatever. So
Yep.
it's challenging. Once you figure it out
Yep.
though, it's helpful.
Yep.
And then what about making time and energy for your partner and your
Yeah.
relationship? I'm pretty sure if I had 5 kids, that
Yeah.
probably would have fallen by the wayside. I mean, it kind of fell by the wayside
Hmm.
first marriage with just the one kid. So
Yeah.
how do you
No, it's
make
hard.
that? How do you sustain that?
Well, we haven't talked for 20 years. I'm just kidding. No, so
We haven't completed a sentence in the last
no, really,
22
I
years.
sometimes I feel like that for real though, because we'll be like da 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 da, because we're trying to get it in quick,
Right?
But no,
Plus, with ADHD, you lose your train of thought. Like, what was I saying? I don't
no,
know. Let's
I
just move
know,
on.
because he has it too, so we're a big mess.
Right?
But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so no, but I think if anything with that, it's definitely we have to make time. So we have to make that effort to, if we can go out together, because that's when we're going to have the conversations. Probably most of
Right.
that's going to be it. Even if it's a date night at home, like our kids know too. We're having a date night or whatever. They know.
Yep.
Leave us alone or whatever.
This is our time.
Basically,
That's
So
great.
doing that
Did that feel
really is
bad? Was
what
that hard for you to give yourselves permission to say, like, this time is for us two together and you guys are good
it
and you're not
didn't
partying?
really, because
Okay.
I feel like we did that from the beginning with our kids. They understood that, and it's not like that's all we did.
Right.
And it was only certain times, and
Yeah.
also because we made sure our kids understood this is important, so
Right.
we can be your parents, and then we can also work together so we can parent you guys. So
Right.
like, we even our kids knew that. We explained
That's
that.
beautiful. That's
So
awesome. All right. So with this scenario that we are hearing about, you must have developed some parenting hacks
yeah.
along the way. Can you share one with us that sticks out to you?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Definitely some of the parenting hacks, or a parent. I know you said one.
Well,
Sorry,
we'll take them all. I don't care.
I just have little things. But I think, and I tell this to the people, the clients I work with, to the parents too. I think that having a family time is important. Like having that, either if it's dinner, even if you can, like now it's like one night a week,
Right.
maybe, that we try to definitely do
Sports
something
and
together.
yeah.
We're having a family meeting. We're discussing things. Not only are we having a good time, we might watch something, laugh, play games, whatever, but we're also taking the time together to talk about things too, where this isn't working. You aren't doing the chores or something. What can we do to help ourselves in this situation so that we can
But it's
do
more of a
better.
brainstorm than a
It
lecture
it
or
is,
okay.
and I think that that's super important. Again, I feel like I tell parents that kids realize and know more than maybe we realize. So we can have that conversation with them. Guys, what do you think? Even when they're little, what is something that we should do to help ourselves with following directions or,
Right.
cleaning our room? What can we do together to, and I think that's really important, that working together piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and with that too, that open communication, I think with their kids is really important as well. And being able to talk and being able to even share like mistakes that you've made. Like I did this, that was a mistake, like being open and kind of vulnerable even in ways, with the kids so that they see a human being
Yep.
who is modeling emotions
And
and
we
how to
actually
fix
dig
those.
into that a little bit on the one right before this. So if that's hard for you, parents, go back and listen to
Yeah,
that
no,
one with
yep,
Paul Kesselman.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, that is really helpful. Okay, well, I could clearly talk to you forever, but we'll
yep.
cap it there. We'll save more for next time. But
Okay,
I have one more
yeah,
question for you.
yeah, yep.
What is, with just your mom hat still on, what's one thing you've learned along this journey that we haven't talked about yet? Maybe something that you're like, oh man, I wish I had figured that out sooner, that you want other parents to know now so they don't have to learn it the hard
Yeah,
way or at the end of their journey.
yeah. I definitely think that I had to learn this, and I had to be reminded of it. My mom would remind me when they were little, that they're just going to be small for a short amount of time. They're just going to be with you for a short amount of time. And that's always, I feel like, on my mind. So taking that time to make sure that you are, if they're little, spending the extra time cuddling or rocking them or playing with them and not, yes, there's wash and there's other things to do. Yes, you have a job, whatever that might be. But sometimes you got to put those, and you can't put your job off necessarily, but
Right.
the other things that might come up that you could put off and say, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the kiddos. And I feel that way even now as they get older. I feel like I don't have much time with them here. They're getting older now. So I want to make sure I'm spending that time with them. And I think that's super
And that's
important.
really hard to feel until you have the hindsight of, oh, now we're there. We're where everyone
Yes.
said we'd eventually
Yep.
be. And I wish, and look, we're not saying this is not toxic positivity. I'm not of
No,
the mindset of like savor every moment because there's so few. Like
no,
you can hate certain things. You can be like, I love you,
exactly.
but I don't like you right now.
Exactly.
Um, but I think what you're
Yep.
saying is like nothing is forever. This
Right.
is a small portion of their
Yep.
career as a person and your career in parenting them, and
Yeah.
just don't miss out on those moments
Yes.
because you have such a long to-do list or whatever.
Exactly.
It's
That
not
is,
easy.
I think I could get caught up in that back in too, of that where I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do that. But,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's
absolutely.
hard.
That is an excellent tip, and it's
Mhm.
a perfect segue into my conclusion, where I give you my current list of things that I had to learn the hardest way. So, Jessica, thanks for joining me.
Sure.
Listeners, I'll be back soon with more things that I and
Mhm.
others, experts and parents, wish that we knew sooner. But in the meantime, my list of stuff I've learned the hardest way. Your to-do list will always be there. It might get
Yeah.
shorter, but it doesn't go away. And as soon as it gets shorter, things get put on the end. So
Mhm.
you have to put yourself and your partner, if there is one, on it.
Mhm.
You can't wait for it to be done because it'll never be done. You
Right.
also, number 2, can't pour from an empty cup. So find ways to refill yours every day, even if they're little and brief. And number 3, there's no way to be a perfect parent. Stop striving for that.
Yeah.
Countless ways to be a good one. Thank you so, so much. This was excellent. And we will
Awesome.
be back
Thank
with
you.
more soon. Thanks, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
listening and watching.